What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to some more Bible reading. However, I'm not actually going to read it from here this time. This particular recording, or at least the bulk of it, was actually done during a live stream. So, obviously it's going to look a little different. So, anyway, let's hop right into it. Welcome back to some Bible reading. This time, I'm going to be doing Genesis chapter 40. Basically where we left off was Joseph was in Egypt. He was working for Potiphar, who was a very important person. But basically Potiphar's wife caused Joseph to get into some trouble, and he got thrown in prison. But Joseph gained the favor of the prison warden, and so he was kind of, in a sense, running things in the prison while he was there. So, this is where we join the story, and let's just hop right into it. See what happens. Anyway. Alright, so, Genesis 40, starting with verse 1. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials, and he put them in prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. See, that's part of the reason why the previous bit was important to know, that Joseph had gained some responsibility within the prison, because otherwise he may or may not have had any significant dealings with these two men, who will become important here in a bit. Anyway, alright, verse 5. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked them. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean." "Interpreting dreams is God's business," Joseph replied. "Go ahead and tell me your dreams." So, Joseph, being a person who had a fair number of dreams himself, and, any interpretation of them, or even the dreams themselves, really would have come from God, to his understanding. He kind of figured, well, I have a little experience with dreams. Why don't you guys tell me your dreams? And I guess he figures the interpretation, if it's from God, then great. It'll make both him and God look good. If it's not so great, then, well, that's probably more so on him than on God. But anyway, alright, verse 9. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. "In my dream," he said, "I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Okay, so that's his dream. 3 branches are probably going to have some sort of meaning. And so it was pretty closely related to what he was doing before he was thrown in prison. But let's try and see what the meaning of it might be. Verse 12. "This is what the dream means," Joseph said. "The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. Okay, so Joseph interprets the dream, says it basically means good news for the cupbearer, and since he was wrongfully imprisoned, he kind of asks for that favor of the cupbearer to mention him to Pharaoh. Also, as far as I can recall, this is possibly the first instance, at least one of the earliest for sure, of it using the word Hebrews. But maybe I'm just not remembering prior times that term was used, but I don't recall other instances of that being the word that was used to refer to, Abraham's descendants, for lack of a better way to put it. So that, assuming his interpretation is correct, that is why the cupbearer going to prison is important, and why Joseph hearing and interpreting his dream is important. Anyway, all right, then we get to verse 16. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, I had a dream too. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastries stacked on my head. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head. Okay, so similar in terms of 3 things in the dream. But this seems to, be a little more directly, on him. I mean, literally as far as what happens in the dream. But anyway, let's see what it means. Verse 18. This is what the dream means, Joseph told him. The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Then birds will come and peck away at your flesh. Far less positive interpretation there. But if, the interpretations are truly accurate and Joseph were to keep interpreting many dreams, they would not all have positive interpretations. But I find it interesting that, it was only the first basket that, the birds came and ate from in the dream. But I guess that was the one where it said it contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh. It didn't say anything about the contents of the other baskets, if there were any at all. But anyway, all right. I guess time to see if those are accurate interpretations. All right, verse 20. Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. So, the footnote on he summoned says the Hebrew is perhaps originally meaning more like he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and baker rather than he summoned. But might have just been somewhat of a colloquial way of saying that he summoned them. So, turns out Joseph was right. But as it mentions in the last verse, the cupbearer forgot all about Joseph. which, you know, I think a lot of us are guilty of forgetting things at least for a time, you know, when we get caught up in a significant moment, especially. But that was, you know, that was a fairly significant thing. I mean, Joseph basically did the cupbearer a favor by interpreting his dream and telling him that something positive would happen. Seems oddly forgetful, but again, caught up in a moment. Big deal. He's restored back to his former position and standing. So, I mean, you know, it's not necessarily unheard of. But, I mean, when it says never giving him another thought, that kind of implies that it remained the case for quite a while. We're not going to see or even have any idea how long until we get to the next chapter. But, yeah, that's all that this one says. Kind of a short chapter, but, you know, it happens sometimes. So, Joseph is still in prison, still having some responsibilities within the prison. So, at least, you know, he's not being treated harshly while he's there. But still in prison. So that's where we leave things off for now. Short chapter gets a short video, I guess. So that's going to do it for now. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it if you want others to see. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell to get updates when I post new videos. And then, of course, have a look down in the description for info on my other social media pages and how to find and follow those. All that good stuff. And, of course, leave comments down below with any thoughts that you have related to this chapter, other chapters, any other video ideas you have for me. Whatever it is, let me know down below. Oh, and in case you missed the announcements, I am planning on doing, like, an abridged Bible as I go through this stuff. Once I finish Genesis, I will have Genesis Abridged coming out pretty shortly thereafter. And that'll be basically the first video of that kind. I'll just do one video like that per book of the Bible. And eventually that'll all get compiled together into the Abridged Bible in its entirety. You know, whenever that eventually happens. It's going to take a while. But anyway, so yeah, that's it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.